Good morning and welcome to another edition of MasterMind Minutes. My name is Gary Okigrosso. I'm the managing partner for Franchise Growth Solutions. As you know by now, that's this big poster behind me. And if you want to learn more about what we do at Franchise Growth Solutions, you can click on the link below. That'll take you to my website and kind of walk you through the whole process. MasterMind Minutes, for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, is a webcast and podcast that is designed to give you some information in minutes, not hours. Typically, we have one guest, we ask one question, and we get one expert answer. That's how it works. Now, we realize that's a tease, so at the end of the program, our guest will give you his contact information, but don't worry about writing it down because we will post that information in the text box on the podcast platforms and, of course, on YouTube and on our webcast on LinkedIn. So no need to jot it down, it'll be there. Today, my guest is Yianni Mamtsaderis. He is a 26-year-old entrepreneur who founded frescopod. And frescopod is a cleantech startup that aims to reduce plastics associated with coffee. And I happen to think this is really important. The first problem he's tackling is the plastic waste that's caused by the single-use coffee pods, such as the ones, the K-cups, and we all know what those little cups are. He's doing this by providing the user with not only a useful, but a very simple alternative to those single-use plastic pods. Yianni studied marketing and business at Baruch College, and after graduating, he started a small private label sporting goods company called ILIO that sold children's shinguards for soccer. And boy, do I remember those when my daughter was playing soccer. The idea for frescopod came to him about 2 years ago, and he became obsessed, eventually quitting his job in sales to go full-time with the concept. He is a coffee aficionado, and we discussed that at a network meeting where we met a few years back. He is fully committed to this concept and to this prospect of frescopod, and we'll hear about how he launched it. And he hopes to make a significant positive impact by reducing waste that's caused by those little K-cup pods. So Yianni, thank you very much for being with us here today. I truly appreciate it. Before we get to the question, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background, and then we can talk about what inspired you and where you're at now in the process.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Gary. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. And if we're just going to get kind of straight into what really convinced me to go full force with frescopod was after I had the idea, I started looking into the problem a little bit more, because really, like you think of it, any new company, any new product, any new innovation, really there needs to be a problem there that that product is solving. So the way I came up with the idea was when I was staring at a Keurig brewer in my kitchen, one that my whole family uses. I was thinking about all of the materials and really the plastic, the metal, the glue, the filter inside, the coffee, and bringing everything together, and the logistics behind that as well, right? The packaging and the shipping. And I thought it was so wasteful, but I didn't realize how big the problem had become. So you could probably relate with this when you go to the coffee aisle in any supermarket or Walmart, Target, wherever you buy your coffee, or even online. Really, like, one of the biggest categories is single serve now. And this wasn't the case really 10 years ago. So what I learned was, first of all, how much the problem has grown. So from 2009 to 2019, single serve ownership in the US went from 3% in 2009 to 42%
Wow.
in 2019.
Wow. See, I'm not a single serve coffee person, mostly because I have yet to find one that the coffee tastes good.
Mm-hmm. And that's a problem and a sacrifice that many people pretty much sacrifice that for the convenience aspect. And they even say, I use the Keurig, but honestly, I don't love the coffee that I'm drinking. But
Yeah.
you're a little different because I know you like your coffee, and it's
Yeah, and I'm a
important to you.
foodie. I'm a foodie. So for me, and by the way, I think I may have mentioned this to you. I'm a former franchisee of Dunkin' Donuts. So
Yeah.
the idea of even grinding a coffee bean that's more than, say, 10 or 12 days from roast date, the idea of grinding it more than, 5 minutes before I'm about to brew the pot of coffee, to me is unheard of. So
Mhm.
when we talk about good food and good coffee, the word convenience doesn't have to get connected to it.
Mhm.
I want it to be good. So tell me, like, what happens to those pods? Are those things recycled? Do they end up in landfills? Do they end up in the ocean? What's
That's
that about?
a great question. So what the makers of these pods are doing now, they are labeling them as recyclable. And trust me, if you go and look at the packaging, they want to make it very clear that it's recyclable. However, the thing with recycling in general is that it is actually bad for the environment. I'm going to explain why. Is because people use a lot of plastic thinking that, well, I'm throwing it in the recycling bin, so it's going to get recycled. The reality is, in America, only 9% of what gets thrown in the recycling actually gets recycled and repurposed. And
Yeah,
then if it does get recycled, even, it's going to get recycled once, and then it's never going to get used or recycled again.
yeah,
And the thing is, in particular with these pods, is because they're so small, because there's live matter in it. There's used coffee grounds in there that's wet. There's foil, there's glue, there's all these different materials, and because they're so small, they almost never get recycled. Technically, the plastic is made out of a recyclable plastic, but even if it did have the chance of getting through that 9%, it has an even less chance
right.
because of the size, because of and just the really the all the different matters that are in it. So what you do have to do, even for there to be a chance, the user, when they're done using it, would have to peel off the foil, which is not easy, especially when it's hot, empty out the used coffee grounds, remove the filter from the plastic, and then sort out and clean the plastic, and then there will be a 9% chance of them getting recycled.
Oh my gosh. So for me, I take the lid off of my Farberware type coffee pot. I still perk coffee. I take the
Mhm.
metal piece out of the basket. I dump the coffee grinds in a little bucket until I have enough of them. Then I put them in my garden and I get really good garden stuff
It's an amazing fertilizer,
when I
used
when
coffee
I grow
grounds.
it.
Yeah.
So okay, so then tell us then, what was your first step? Obviously, you thought about this and you wanted to do this. So here's kind of the question on the one topic. I guess the questions are kind of connected. So logistically, what was the first step once you said, "Hey, I want to do this"? Now, what did you need to do? You invented it or near invented it? What was like, how did you bring it to life?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think really what it was doing initially. First thing is really educating myself on, one, the problem, the issue, and that got me even more passionate and more into finding a solution. And then two, really also researching the current market and seeing, like, well, is this problem already being addressed? If so, how is it being addressed? Who's currently solving it? And is that a good solution? Is there room for improvement? So really what like set me to and I really want to make this clear, really what set me like over the edge with, okay, this really needs to be addressed, was when I was researching it further. So 2019 alone, just last year, 14.3 billion of these pods, not including Nespresso, just K-Cup compatible pods, 14.3 billion were sold. And really, it's only really the North American market. It's the United States and Canada that are really using it. Some parts of Europe, but really just that area. If you were to take those 14.3 billion pods and just line them up one after the other like this, right? These are tiny. It would wrap around the circumference of the Earth 15 times, more than 15 times. That would take, just one time around the world would take 48 hours straight flying on a commercial flight to go around. So imagine covering that distance of plastic with just to make a cup of coffee. And this didn't exist 5-10 years ago. This is like a new problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I just thought, if this isn't addressed, the next 10 years will be an additional 100 billion, hundreds of billions, right? So it was a matter of that, and then also figuring out what is the actual right solution. Because the thing is, the single serve user is highly motivated by convenience. They put it in, and then there's no cleanup. That's the big thing, is the cleanup, because there are refillable pods on the market that look something like, I actually have one over here somewhere. Here we go. That looks something like this.
Yeah, I've seen those. And it's interesting. There may be no cleanup in the kitchen, but there's a cleanup on the planet. So I hear you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And exactly, yeah, based on this, there's no cleanup, but where is this ending up? This is ending up in, like you said, is it ending up in our oceans? Yeah, because it's going to the landfill. And this is a whole problem with plastic in general. Nobody wants it. For years, we were shipping it to China, actually. The United States and all these developed countries in Europe, China was taking in their waste, and they were getting some type of initiative for it. I don't know exactly what, but nobody wants it anymore. China stopped taking it. So now there's like a whole black market on it. Like, it's crazy. Like, these countries are illegally taking it in, accepting money and burning it. And then it's like horrible for the people and the kids that live in the surrounding areas, because they're inhaling these fumes. Like, it's horrible. Yeah. So that's why they say reduce, reuse, recycle. So we're reducing the waste in the first place. Really what it was, getting back to your question, about like, what are the steps? Like I said, researching the issue, and then really thinking about deeply and researching like a good solution. I already had like somewhat of an idea in my head, but I didn't know exactly how I was going to actually make it work and how it was going to function. So a big part of that was really just spending the time to like really work on it and think about it. I mean, I was working full time at the time, so it really was just on my mind a lot. And then really the first like big step I took was hiring a mechanical engineer to translate the picture I had in my head into an actual computer aided design file. And that not only, what that does is that also gets you somewhat invested in it. So I had to pay him, so that got me invested in it a little bit, monetary, but also time wise.
Mm-hmm. Now let me ask you this. So once that was done, then you had, I guess, like a shop drawing of it. You knew what it was going to look like, how it functioned. Is that something that you then took to get a patent on it? Is the patent pending? Where are you at in that step?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. It's very important to protect yourself with the Patent and Trademark Office when you're dealing with something like this. But in order to file that patent, you have to have, like you said, these sketches and these things, and a well thought out, somewhat of a well thought out idea. But what I learned was, as I researched how to get a patent more and more, a lot of people think that a patent costs so much money. Like, oh my God, I'm going to invest $10,000 in getting a patent. But as of like maybe 15 years ago, the USPTO allowed inventors to file a provisional patent, mm-hmm. which would give them a 1-year period of protection before they go forth and actually get a non-provisional patent. So that's the first step, that once I had like a solid idea of all the functionality of it, and it was made, and I could describe it, and I could really, because the thing with a patent, the more you add to it, the more valuable it is. The more information that's in it, the more valuable it's going to be, because you're thinking about every angle. You want to think about every angle because you want to think about how somebody's going to get around the patent, right? So you want to like set yourself up, that patent up, that people can't get around it because you mentioned everything. But now, so like now in the process, to get an issued patent, it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years for anybody. And right now it's just a matter of, I've already you also need to speak to lawyers, which you could do really just for anybody starting. You could find patent agents and patent attorneys on websites like Upwork, and a lot of them will be happy to talk to you for free, and you could ask them questions that you have and then decide whether or not it's the right move for you. So I really think it's just a matter of researching it, educating yourself on it first. You don't need to become an expert, but definitely educate yourself on it. And then you could speak to an attorney. And then now, kind of like I'm in the process of, I've already filed multiple provisionals, multiple trademarks, and it's just a matter of bringing that now to one solid non-provisional patent.
Right, right. So then, I guess the next step would be to actually create or manufacture a working prototype.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you do that? I mean, doesn't sound like something you would do with like a K-cup pod and Scotch tape or something. It sounds like something you actually have to make.
Yeah, yeah. So I got really creative in the beginning with retrofitting different things. But now, so the whole thing was, and just for anybody out there that's looking to get from prototype stage to manufacturing stage, when you have a CAD file, a 3D CAD file of something, and it looks good, everything solid would work, right? When you're producing it, there needs to be molds made out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to mass produce it, you need to use injection molding. So just the CAD file needs to be changed to be able to be mass production ready. So that's the step before you could even go to a factory. So if you have a CAD file and you're like, oh, I could just call a factory, send them the CAD file. No, they're going to tell you, hey, look, we took a look at the CAD files. It's not ready for mass production. You need to hire an engineer to get those files into a mass with mass production in mind, like to get somebody to do it who has it in mind, to be able to mass produce it.
Okay.
So that on its own is a transition, and then once you have that, then you can make the molds pretty much, and then when you have molds,
So
then you can mass produce.
there's a lot of steps here. So I got two more questions for you, and they both maybe next steps. So you have that done. Now, I would imagine you need to somehow raise some money in order to make this manufacturing step work. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is it on market yet? So talk to me about your thoughts on funding, getting it funded, what you're doing to do that, and then getting it to market if it isn't already in market.
Okay, good question. Well, first off, we are pre-revenue, so it isn't to market yet. But that's true what you said. When you want to take something to market, it's going to cost money to have that initial manufacturing run. So pretty much what we spoke to up to this point, if you are somewhat scrappy and you're smart about it, you can get by with less than $10,000, let's say, right? It doesn't take a huge investment initially. But when you want to make that jump to producing 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 of these, yes, it could cost a lot of money.
Okay.
So what I thought and what I think and what millions of people think is a very interesting solution to that without diluting very early on. And what I mean by that, but for anybody that's just, selling equity at a very undervalued number because you are pre-revenue, is use a platform, a crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter or Indiegogo if you want to raise money without giving away any of your company. Mm-hmm. Because there are other crowdfunding platforms that you could get funded by giving away some equity. Mm-hmm. But you could also always speak to investors, right? Angel investors. But usually they want to see some traction. Yeah. So they want to see some revenue. In my case, that I'm producing an all new product, physical product, the only way to really get sales is to sell units. The only way to sell units is to mass produce.
Right.
So it's like, how do I get there? Right.
Right.
So really, I think crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, they knock out two birds with one stone, because not only are you raising the money that you need for your initial run, but you're pre-selling those units. So you know those are going out right away. And then you're also proving demand, right? So let's say somebody pre-sells 1,000 units, they could order 1,000 units knowing that they have buyers that are going to buy them. And then also the real value that one would get from that is also getting user feedback. After selling 1,000 of these, people would say, oh, I love this, and then you find a trend that people dislike and you improve it, right? Iterate.
That sort of validation, I think, is incredibly valuable. So now let's kind of assume, for the sake of this conversation, you've got 5,000 of these things sitting in your garage. How do you get them to market? How do you get them distributed? Are they on trucks at food service supply places? Are they in Costco or supermarkets? Or does this kind of connect to your prior life where it becomes an e-commerce value? How do you get them sold?
Good question. E-commerce, online right now. I think that's the best way, kind of like a side door, because right now getting into retail would be nearly, let's call it what it is, impossible for me to get in, right, with no sales. So I think that e-commerce is not only beneficial in that way, but it also gives you this way of, like I said, kind of like a backdoor, because eventually I would want to sell in retail, because the whole thing, the nature of frescopod is that the device will be sold, but then after that, people will buy the pods, right? So, and when I say pods, I just mean filter paper. When somebody sees what the product is, they'll understand what I'm talking about, which is very convenient for something like that to be sold, right, let's say in retail, right? Because people are doing their grocery shopping and they're like, oh, I need filters for my frescopod. It's a special type of filter. It would be great to pick it up there. Instead of having to run out of it and then order it, and then it takes maybe 2 to 5 days for them to get it. There's a lapse there. So what I think the future of this type of product is the auto renewal subscription. So when somebody buys a frescopod, there's going to be, and this is something that's in the works development, but it's something that I feel like would be extremely beneficial for the user. They're going to download a very simple app. And the way they're going to download that app, there's going to be a QR code included. So they're going to want to do it. Like, they're going to have their new device, they're going to have their phone handy, scan this QR code, download the app. The app is going to very simply ask them how many people in the household drink coffee and how many cups a day. It's going to do a simple calculation, and then that way the app is able to generate a number and then create auto renewal shipping to the user based on their consumption. So I think something like the filters that need to be bought afterwards, it would be very beneficial to go direct to consumer on an auto renewal.
Yeah, I agree. And it makes a lot of sense to me, because if your distribution is e-commerce and your marketing is social media platforms to various, what I call tribes, I think the folks that you're trying to reach versus the folks that are walking down the supermarket aisle looking for their, they're probably looking for coffee and convenience. That's probably their 2 C's. Your 2 C's are probably coffee and caring. They're people who care about the planet, care about all this garbage being thrown. So you can create marketing programs designed to go after those people. And essentially, I think you use the term backdoor. I like the term end run. You can end run the companies that are spending millions and millions of dollars advertising, because your pod is geared towards a particular type of user. Okay, so we have to wrap it up. But one of the things that I want you to do, and then I want people to get in touch with you about this question, because I haven't asked you, and we won't ask you now. We'll have you back on as this thing progresses. But I haven't asked you anything about the coffee. And I don't want to ask you here. What I want people to do is contact you and ask you about the coffee component to all of this. So for people who want to reach you, Yianni, what's the best way for that to happen?
Yeah, so the best way would be on Instagram. My username is, or our username is at frescopod. The link to our website is going to be in our bio, but anybody that wants to go directly to the website, that's really what the thing is. Anybody out there who uses a single serve brewer or knows a family member or friend that uses a single serve brewer, I know I didn't explain in detail what it is, but I'm telling you, you're going to be very interested in this product. Visit the website. The website will show you everything. We have beautiful renders, we have videos, and it'll show you exactly how it works and what it is. The website is www.thefrescopod.com, and all our information is there. All of our social media is there. Check it out. Early 2021, our Kickstarter will be live. So if this is a product that you're interested in, or you know somebody that is interested in it, you can enter your email on our website and we'll update you on that release. But come January, February 2021, you're going to be able to pre-order a FrescoPod and be one of the first to not only experience it, but also play a part in reducing the single-use plastic waste caused by these pods, and join the movement. So I'm really excited to move forward with this. It was great talking to you, Gary. You had some really good questions, and it made me think about certain aspects of the business, and definitely things to think about.
Well, I'm interested in speaking with you again about it. We'll have you back on, but like I said, for now, it's got to be minutes, not hours. So
yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again next time on MasterMind Minutes.